The Alien Council's observation center trembles as an ancient human warship, the Titan-class Regalia, reactivates after centuries of dormancy. What was once thought to be a relic of a dead species, long gone from the galaxy, now hums back to life. Alien leaders struggle to comprehend the meaning of the ship's sudden revival, with fear creeping in as they realize the danger that humanity might not have been destroyed after all. The glow of holographic projections flickered against the cold steel walls of the observation chamber. A dozen figures, each alien unique and powerful, stood in absolute silence, their eyes locked on the central projection. It was an image they had not expected to see. The ship, long thought to be a forgotten myth, now powered up once more. Regalia, a Titan-class warship from Earth, was the pinnacle of human engineering before their species was believed to have perished in an ancient war. The gigantic vessel had been thought to be nothing more than a relic, buried under centuries of dust and rust in the forgotten reaches of space. Yet here it was, alive and pulsing with energy, defying all known logic. Eldrin, the commander of the Athelian fleet, stood at the heart of the observation room, his 6 tentacles stiff with tension. His species, known for their calm and logical demeanor, was visibly shaken. He motioned to the holographic image before him, trying to suppress the rising fear in his voice. "How is this possible?" Eldrin muttered, his voice a low growl. "The humans, they should be gone." Mavira, one of the Council's highest-ranking officers, leaned in closer to the projection, her 6 large eyes narrowing in disbelief. That ship, it was destroyed in the battle with the Araxi centuries ago. No human vessel could survive, not after all this time. But the ship is active, Zorath, the fleet's chief diplomat, remarked, his voice unsteady. The large, alien skin was covered in dark iridescent scales that shimmered under the low lights of the room, his sharp, jagged features twisted in confusion. "It's drawing power from somewhere. This can't be. How are the humans still alive?" A cold silence fell over the Council. The thought that humanity was still present in the galaxy, let alone capable of reactivating such a powerful warship, was unthinkable. The Athelian Empire had wiped Earth from all records centuries ago, convinced that the humans had been eradicated in the Great War. The only trace of humanity had been their wreckage, remnants scattered throughout the galaxy. Zorath turned to Eldrin, his voice quivering. "What if they're not extinct? What if we've underestimated them?" Eldrin's normally calm face was a mask of anxiety. "The humans were once nothing more than a primitive species. They couldn't possibly have..." The holographic image flickered once more, and suddenly, the Regalia's massive engines came to life. The ship, once dormant, was now pulsing with a faint light. "Impossible!" Mavira exclaimed, taking a step back in shock. The gravitas reactor is powering up. It's drawing immense amounts of energy from its core. This shouldn't be possible. The reactor was decommissioned a millennium ago. We've made a grave error," Eldrin whispered, his voice hollow. The implications were clear. Humanity had never been truly gone. They had simply been waiting, hidden away in the dark folds of space, biding their time. The screen zoomed in on the Regalia's massive hull. The once-dead Titan was awakening from its slumber. The powerful thrusters began to hum, faint but unmistakable. "This was no mistake. We must act," Eldrin stated with cold resolve. "If they have returned, we need to prepare ourselves. We cannot allow this ship to regain its full power." "But how do we fight a race we believe to be extinct?" Zorath asked, his voice trembling with a fear he rarely showed. The question hung in the air. Eldrin turned to the rest of the Council, each member now visibly uneasy. The walls of the observation chamber seemed to close in on them. The realization hit them like a shockwave. Humanity was not gone. The Regalia was only the first of many, things they had hidden from the galaxy. Inside the Regalia, the bridge was quiet. The hum of systems being reactivated filled the air like a distant, comforting lullaby. Commander Alan Price sat at the helm, his face pale but determined. The ship, once thought to be a tomb, was now his command once again. Status report. Price's voice was low but firm, cutting through the silence. We're online, Commander. A voice from the comms responded. Power levels are optimal. The gravity coils are operational. Reactor fully engaged. Price stared at the massive view screen ahead. Stars scattered across the void, but his mind was elsewhere. He wasn't just bringing the regalia back to life. He was also reviving humanity's place in the galaxy. They had been quiet for far too long, hiding in the shadows, waiting for the right moment. The regalia's weapon systems hummed to life, and a brief smile tugged at Price's lips. Let's make sure the galaxy remembers why they feared us. Yes, sir, came the response, calm but edged with excitement. The silence on the bridge was broken only by the deep rumble of the ship's systems and the faint sound of the comms, crackling. But a single chilling thought hung in the air. Humanity was back, and they were ready to take back what was rightfully theirs. The massive alien fleet had gathered in the depths of the Athelian system, cloaked in silence and watching. The reactivation of the human warship. Eldrin stood before the observation panel, his tentacles twitching in agitation. His mind raced as the implications of humanity's return grew clearer with each passing moment. The sheer enormity of their hidden strength was overwhelming. They should have been extinct, Mavira said, her voice laced with disbelief. How could we have missed them? How could we have allowed this to happen? They were never truly gone, Eldrin replied, the weight of his words settling in the room like a thick fog. We were blind, thinking them weak, thinking they were nothing, more than a memory. But that ship, the Regalia, it's a testament to their strength. They have power, and they have the resolve to use it. Mavira's sharp eyes flickered to the holographic displays, which now showed the Regalia in full. The warship's engines were starting to hum with life, its colossal frame dwarfing the surrounding asteroids. It was more than just a ship. It was a symbol that humanity was not defeated, that they were still alive and waiting for their moment to strike. I thought they were nothing more than a broken species, Zorath said, his voice edged with a mixture of fear and awe. But this is not a broken species. This is a species we underestimated. Eldrin's mind was working rapidly, running through every possible scenario. The Regalia could not be allowed to reach full power. If humanity was back, the galaxy would shift in ways they could not yet comprehend. The humans' reactivation of their warship was only the beginning. There were more ships, more technology, more hidden resources out there. They had been quiet for so long, perhaps too long. And now they were showing their hand. The Athelian Empire had to respond. Send a signal to all fleets, Eldrin ordered. We need to lock down the system. No one enters or leaves. We need to contain them now before they make a move. There was a brief pause before Mavira spoke again. What if we're too late? Then we'll deal with that when the time comes, Eldrin snapped. Right now, we need to be prepared. On the bridge of the Regalia, Commander Alan Price stood still, watching the stars outside through the view screen. The ship had come to life, once more its systems humming with power. The massive Titan-class vessel was a formidable weapon, but it was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol, the heart of a species thought to be extinct. And now, it was ready to reclaim its place in the galaxy. Commander, came the voice of Lieutenant Kara, the ship's second in command. The fleet has received our signal. They're ready to begin operations. Price nodded. Good. Prepare the weapon systems. We need to make sure the message is clear. Humanity is back. Kara hesitated for a moment before speaking again. Sir, are we really doing this? Are we ready to confront the entire galaxy? Price's expression hardened, his jaw set. We don't have a choice. The galaxy thought we were gone, that we were weak. They believed they could erase us. Now it's time for them to realize their mistake. The hum of the ship's massive engines reverberated through the bridge as the Regalia slowly moved forward, its colossal size dwarfing anything nearby. Price could feel the weight of the ship, the weight of the decision he had just made. This wasn't just about one warship. This was about the rebirth of a species, about reclaiming a place that had been taken from them. Humanity had been forgotten, dismissed as irrelevant, and now it was time to remind the galaxy that they were far from gone. Back in the alien command center, Eldrin paced back and forth, his mind working at full capacity. He could feel the pressure mounting, the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The regalia had been reactivated, and now the question remained. How would the galaxy react? How would the Athelian Empire respond to the sudden re-emergence of humanity? "We need to mobilize," Zorath said, his voice carrying a hint of urgency. "If we don't act quickly, we'll lose control of the situation. The humans have shown their hand and now they'll expect a response." Eldrin nodded, his tentacles twitching. "We'll send a message. But this time it won't be a simple warning. This will be a demonstration of power." Mavira raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting we attack?" Eldrin met her gaze. "We need to show them that they are still nothing compared to the might of the Athelian Empire. We have to remind them why they were wiped out in the first place." "But how do we fight something we can't even fully understand?" Zorath asked, his voice tinged with fear. "They have the regalia, and they have other ships too. We thought they were gone. We were wrong." "We weren't just wrong," Eldrin said, his voice cold and filled with determination. "We were naive. But now we know the truth. And the truth is this: humanity is alive, and we cannot let them rise again." On the bridge of the regalia, Commander Price stood tall, his eyes focused on the viewscreen ahead. The regalia was now fully operational, its systems humming with power, its weapons ready. The time for waiting was over. The galaxy had forgotten humanity, and it was time for them to remember. "Lieutenant Kara," Price said, his voice calm but filled with authority, "begin the preparations for the first wave of ships. We need to send a message to the galaxy. Humanity is back and we're not going anywhere." Kara's fingers danced over the console. "Aye, Commander. The fleet is ready. We've already made contact with our forces. The regalia will lead the charge." Price took a deep breath, the weight of his decision heavy on his shoulders. "Then let's make sure they hear us. The galaxy thought we were weak, that we were gone. Let's remind them what we're capable of." As the regalia moved forward, its massive frame cutting through the blackness of space, Price couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Humanity had been underestimated. For far too long they had been dismissed as a dead species, their legacy nothing more than a distant memory. But now, with the regalia leading the charge, humanity was ready to show the galaxy that they were anything but dead. They were survivors, and they were about to take back what was rightfully theirs. The fleet of alien ships remained in their positions, watching the regalia's movements with cautious eyes. The aliens had never expected this. They had been so sure that humanity was finished, so sure that their war against the humans had been their final victory. But now, with the regalia awakening, with humanity stirring once more, everything had changed. "We cannot let them win," Mavira said, her voice filled with urgency. "We need to strike first." Eldrin turned to her, his eyes filled with cold determination. "Prepare the fleet. It's time to show humanity that the galaxy will never forget what they did to us. They may have the regalia, but we have the power to end them." The tension in the command room grew, the weight of the decision settling on everyone's shoulders. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. And now, humanity's return had sparked a war that no one could escape. As the regalia and its fleet moved into position, the first signs of conflict began to take shape. Price's resolve was unshakable. They would not be ignored any longer. Humanity's return was just the beginning. The galaxy would remember them, whether it wanted to or not. The vast emptiness of space stretched out beyond the regalia, the enormous Titan-class warship now fully operational, its colossal frame cutting through the cold void like an ancient beast revived. Commander Alan Price stood tall on the bridge, staring at the stars ahead, the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a fight for the right to exist in a galaxy that had long since forgotten their name. "We're nearing the Athelian system, Commander," Kara said, her voice steady but tinged with anticipation. "Our fleet is in position. We can begin the attack at your command." Price's expression remained calm, but his mind raced. There was no turning back now. They had been waiting for this moment for far too long. The galaxy had written humanity off, believing them to be a dead species. Now, the Regalia, the flagship of their rebirth, was ready to show them the truth. Humanity was not gone, and they were far from weak. "We proceed as planned," Price said, his voice calm but filled with iron resolve. "We are not here to ask for mercy. We are here to take back what's ours." In the heart of the Athelian Fleet Command Center, Eldrin paced back and forth, his eyes glued to the holographic displays in front of him. The fleet was ready. The ships were in position. And yet, a feeling of unease gnawed at him. He had never faced an enemy like humanity before. Their resurgence had shaken him in ways he could not fully comprehend. "Commander," Zorath's voice cut through his thoughts. "The Regalia is approaching. Our scouts have confirmed it. The humans are making their move." Eldrin stopped pacing, his tentacles flexing with tension. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. "We'll engage them head-on. This will be a show of force. We will remind them why they were wiped out." Zorath hesitated for a moment before speaking. Again, "Commander, we've underestimated them before. Are we sure this is the right approach? The humans have reactivated the Regalia, a ship we thought destroyed. What if we're walking into a trap?" Eldrin's cold gaze locked onto Zorath. "There are no traps, Zorath. The humans are a dead species. This is a final desperate attempt to regain their lost glory. We will crush them, and the galaxy will remember our strength." But as Eldrin spoke, a flicker of doubt crossed his mind. He could feel the growing tension in the air, the dread that came with the knowledge that humanity was no longer a myth. The question that haunted him was simple. How many ships did the humans have? And how many more of their hidden weapons were out there? On the bridge of the Regalia, the hum of the ship's massive engines filled the air. The crew worked in perfect unison, their movements precise as they prepared for the battle ahead. Price's eyes remained locked on the stars outside, his mind already calculating the moves they would make. "Commander," Kara said, her voice steady. "The fleet is locked. We're ready to engage at your command." Price nodded, his gaze fixed ahead. "Let's make sure they never forget us." The ship's massive weapon systems came to life, the energy coursing through the Regalia's hull like a living organism. The faint hum of the gravity coils beneath their feet was the only sound that broke the silence on the bridge. "All systems are green, Commander," Kara confirmed. "Weapons online, shields at full strength. The Regalia is ready." Price took a deep breath. "Execute the plan. Target the Athelian command ship first. Let them know we're here." As the Regalia moved forward, the alien fleet ahead of them appeared on the view screen. Hundreds of ships, their sleek designs gleaming in the light of distant stars, waited, poised for battle. The Athelian fleet was powerful, but Price knew the Regalia was their equal, if not superior. And now the humans were about to prove it. "Launch all fighters," Price ordered. "Prepare for immediate engagement." As the Regalia's fighters streamed out into space, the battle was about to begin. But for Price, this was not just another military operation. This was a fight for the future of humanity. The Athelian fleet stood in a precise formation, their ships lined up and ready for combat. Eldrin's mind was focused, his heart pounding in his chest as he gave the order to fire. But as the first energy beams shot toward the Regalia, something unexpected happened. The Regalia's shields flared to life, absorbing the energy like a sponge. "Shields at full power," Kara called out from the bridge. "We're holding steady, Commander. No damage yet." Price's fingers tightened around the console as he watched the incoming fire. The Athelian fleet was strong, but the Regalia was stronger. The human warship's shields flickered and hummed, absorbing the blasts and keeping the crew safe. "Target their command ship," Price ordered again. "We need to take out their leadership before they can react. Full firepower on their flagship." The Regalia's guns roared to life as energy blasts streaked toward the enemy flagship. The Athelian ship's shields held, but just barely. The impact rattled the hull, sending shockwaves through the command center. "Direct hit, Commander," Kara called out, her eyes glued to the console. "Their shields are weakening. They're vulnerable." Eldrin's heart raced as he watched the attack unfold. The regalia was powerful, yes. But what startled him more was the precision with which the humans fought. This was not the reckless aggression he had expected. The humans were methodical. They were disciplined. "Shields holding at 75%, Commander," Kara reported. "We've taken some damage, but we're still good." "Prepare for another round," Price said, his voice cold. "Target their reactors. We take out their power, and the fleet crumbles." The regalia's weapons charged once more, the massive cannons firing in synchronized bursts. Each blast hit its mark, and with each hit, the Athelian ships faltered. The energy shields of the Athelian fleet began to flicker, and one by one, the ships started to fall back. But Eldrin was not about to back down. His fleet had been shaken, but it was not defeated. "Counterattack," he yelled. "Concentrate fire on the regalia. They can't take this much longer." The sky erupted in a flurry of energy beams as the Athelian fleet fired back, their shots streaking toward the regalia. But the human ship's shields flared to life again, absorbing the fire, deflecting it as if the ship was nothing more than a ghost in the stars. "Fire at will," Price shouted. "Target their weapon systems. We need to disable them before they can fire again." The regalia's cannons fired, and this time the Athelian ships were not so lucky. The enemy fleet's shields shattered under the relentless assault. One by one, the alien ships began to break apart, their massive structures burning and crumbling as the humans pressed on. In the command center, Eldrin's face twisted in disbelief as his fleet began to fall apart. The Athelian ships had never faced an enemy like this before. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. "We can't lose this," Zorath said, his voice rising in panic. "We cannot allow the humans to win." Eldrin clenched his fists, his tentacles curling in frustration. "Fall back," he commanded. "Prepare for retreat. The humans are stronger than we anticipated." But as the order was given, the regalia fired once more, and the Athelian command ship, their flagship, exploded into a fiery ball of energy. The fleet faltered, their leadership destroyed, and chaos began to spread among the alien forces. "We've won," Price said, his voice filled with a quiet triumph. The regalia had proven itself. Humanity had proven itself. But even as the regalia loomed victorious in the blackness of space, Price knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy would now know what humanity was capable of, and there was no going back. The regalia floated silently in space, its dark silhouette framed by the stars. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Commander Alan Price stood alone on the bridge, his eyes locked on the view screen. The alien fleet lay shattered before them, but the tension in the air was thick. This victory was just the beginning of something much larger. "We did it, Commander." Kara's voice broke the silence, her eyes shining with a mix of relief and exhaustion. Price nodded, but his expression remained grim. "This was just one battle. There are many more to come." The regalia's systems hummed softly as they drifted through the debris of the alien fleet, the remnants of their enemies scattered across the void. The crew moved quietly, working with the precision of a well-oiled machine, but the unspoken weight of the moment hung over them. Humanity was no longer just a forgotten species. They had proven themselves, and the galaxy would never be the same again. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission," Kara said, her voice tight with apprehension. "It's from the Athelian command center." Price turned slowly, his gaze fixed on the communication panel. "Put it through." The screen flickered, and an alien figure appeared. It was Eldrin, his face contorted with anger and fear. His tentacles twitched in agitation, his eyes burning with fury. "Human," Eldrin's voice was a low growl. "You have no idea what you've unleashed. You've won this battle, but the Athelian Empire is not defeated. We will rebuild, and we will return stronger. The galaxy will never accept you." Price stared coldly at the alien, his expression unwavering. The galaxy doesn't get to decide what happens here anymore, Eldrin. Humanity has returned, and this time we're not going anywhere. Eldrin's eyes narrowed. You think you can stand against us? The Athelian Empire is vast. You're just a speck in the universe. We'll wipe you out again. You're nothing. We're not nothing, Price replied, his voice calm but filled with cold determination. You've already made the mistake of underestimating us once. Don't make it again. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving only the silence of space in its wake. Price turned back to the viewscreen, his eyes narrowing as he looked at the wreckage of the Athelion fleet. It was a stark reminder that their enemies were not easily vanquished, but humanity was no longer the weak, forgotten species they once were. Are we ready for the next phase? Price asked, his voice steady. Kara nodded, her fingers dancing over the console. Yes, Commander. The fleet is secure and we've established a defensive perimeter. We're ready to move forward. Good, Price said. We move on the Athelian homeworld next. This battle is just the beginning. We'll take back what was ours. And we'll make sure that humanity's place in this galaxy is not just remembered, but respected. The next few days were a blur of preparations and strategy. The Regalia's crew worked tirelessly, securing their position in the galaxy. Price oversaw the operation with unwavering focus. Humanity had no choice but to act swiftly, before their enemies could regroup and retaliate. The Athelian Empire would not be the only force to face their wrath. There were others out there, other empires that had long since dismissed humanity as a dead species. Now, humanity would show them just how wrong they were. The crew of the Regalia had come to understand one simple truth. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The Regalia was not just a ship, it was a symbol of everything humanity had endured and overcome. The fire of survival that had driven them to the brink of extinction now burned brighter than ever. Commander, we've received another transmission, Kara said, her voice laced with urgency. Price raised an eyebrow. From whom? It's from the Galactic Council. They want to negotiate. Price's expression remained unchanged. Negotiation? They think they can just talk us down after everything we've been through? It seems so, Kara said. They're offering terms for peace. Price turned to her, his jaw clenched. Peace? After everything we've suffered? They have no idea who they're dealing with. He turned back to the view screen, watching as the remnants of the Athelian fleet scattered into the void. They had underestimated humanity. They thought the humans were a broken species, nothing more than a memory. But humanity had endured. Humanity had survived. And now humanity was ready to take what was theirs. We don't negotiate, Price said, his voice firm. We don't need their peace. We need justice. The crew was silent for a moment, the weight of his words sinking in. This was no longer about survival. It was about reclaiming what was lost. It was about rewriting the history that had been stolen from them, and no one, not even the Galactic Council, would stand in their way. Price walked down the long corridors of the Regalia, his footsteps echoing in the quiet. His mind was already moving ahead, planning the next steps. They had to secure the galaxy one system at a time. The Athelian Empire would fall, but others would rise to take its place. Humanity's war was just beginning. As Price entered the command center, he looked around at the faces of his crew. They had fought together, bled together, and now they were united by a single goal, to take back what was rightfully theirs. Status report, Price said, his voice steady. We're ready for the next phase, Kara replied. We've received word from the fleet. They're mobilizing for the attack on the Athelian homeworld. We'll be there within the week. Good, Price said. We'll hit them hard. We take no prisoners. The crew nodded, their expressions filled with determination. Humanity was no longer a forgotten species. They were no longer a footnote in the galaxy's history. They were a force to be reckoned with. The Regalia hummed softly around them, its systems alive and ready for the next battle. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once before. It would not make that mistake again. As the Regalia prepared to move forward, Price received one final transmission from the Galactic Council. Message was brief, but its implications were clear. They were offering a truce, a chance for peace. They wanted to avoid further bloodshed, but Price knew better than to trust them. Peace is a lie, he muttered under his breath. We've fought too long for peace to be handed to us. The transmission ended, and Price turned to face his crew. They had already made their choice. The galaxy had a new order now, and humanity would be at its helm. There would be no turning back, no negotiating, only conquest. We move forward, Price said, his voice resolute. The galaxy will learn to respect humanity, and they will remember the regalia,